Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're talking about something I know a lot of you have been waiting for, and that's the brand new update for 7 Days to Die, version 2.3. This update is officially out now in its stable release, and it dropped on September 9th, 2025. That's right, the long wait is finally over, and it's live across all platforms. If you've been following along with the experimental builds, you might already know some of what's in here, but now everything is polished up, tested, and ready for everyone to play without worrying about your saves or your progress being at risk. So let's sit back and talk through everything this update brings, what changed compared to the experimental builds, and what this means for players who have been sticking with this game for years. First off, let's talk about the timing, because that's always a big deal. A lot of players were keeping an eye on when 2.3 was going to move from experimental to stable. We had the experimental version, specifically B6 EXP, go live on August 15th, 2025. That was the build that really started showing off the new features, and it was the first chance for people to mess around with the shift from Biome Badges to the new survival gear system. Then, as September rolled around, the developers started pushing out more experimental updates, including B9 EXP on September 6th, which was basically the release candidate. And just 3 days later, we got the confirmation that 2.3 stable was officially out. So the full stable release happened on September 9th. And now, no matter where you're playing, you can jump in and enjoy it without any of those experimental disclaimers. That's always a relief because not everyone wants to risk corrupted saves or broken progression when they're in experimental. And this update has been tested and confirmed to be stable with existing save games, which is awesome news. Now, the biggest change, and probably the thing that players are going to notice immediately, is that biome badges have been completely replaced with survival gear. This is a major shift in how progression works in the game. Before, when you explored the different biomes and tackled the challenges that came with them, you'd earn biome badges as proof of your achievements. But with 2.3, the team decided to overhaul that system and give us something a little more tangible. So instead of just having badges, you now unlock pieces of survival gear. These come with new icons, new visuals, and a much more immersive sense of reward. And don't worry if you've already made progress with biome badges before the update. The game automatically converts your old progress into the new survival gear system, so you're not losing anything. It's basically a fresh coat of paint with some extra functionality, and it feels way more satisfying because you're actually getting items and gear that matter in gameplay rather than just a badge sitting in your menu. What's also really cool about this change is that you're no longer locked into a strict order when it comes to biomes. Previously, the progression path felt a little bit rigid. You had to do things in a certain way, and that could get repetitive if you wanted to approach the game differently. Now, with 2.3, you can explore biome challenges in any order. That freedom opens up the game in such a refreshing way. Let's say you're tired of focusing on one biome first. You can skip it and head into another biome that feels more exciting to you. As long as you can handle the hazards and the enemies there, you're free to tackle it. And that's another thing. Biome hazards have been adjusted too. You're now able to recover from those hazards if you're sheltered, even if you're not in the biome where that hazard originates. That means if you're in trouble from environmental effects, you've got more options to deal with them. It's one of those quality of life changes that doesn't sound huge on paper, but once you experience it in action, it makes the whole flow of the game feel more forgiving and more realistic. Speaking of quality of life improvements, this update has plenty of them. For example, smoothies. If you've been playing for a while, you know smoothies have always been handy, but they weren't exactly visually distinct. Now they've been updated with unique names and icons. It might sound like a small tweak, but it's the kind of polish that helps the game feel more complete. When you open your inventory or loot and you see those unique visuals, it gives you a clearer understanding of what you're working with. It's easier to recognize, easier to manage, and it just looks better overall. Then there are the changes to AI. The developers have been tweaking how enemies behave, making them a bit smarter, a bit more reactive, and in some cases more challenging. You'll notice enemies responding differently to your actions, and that keeps you on your toes. Another fun little addition is honk-triggered events for vehicles. Yeah, you heard that right. If you honk the horn of your vehicle, certain game events can be triggered. It's a quirky, playful addition that adds another layer of interaction, and it makes vehicles feel like more than just a way to get around. It's those little touches that show the developers are paying attention to both gameplay balance and player enjoyment. The stability of this update is another big win. When a new version comes out, especially something that changes core systems like progression, there's always that worry about whether your old saves are going to be safe. The good news is that 2.3 stable has been confirmed to work fine with existing saves. No issues, no corrupted progress, no broken features. That means if you've been building a massive base or working on a long-term playthrough, you can carry on without starting from scratch. That alone is going to make a lot of players happy because nobody wants to lose hundreds of hours of work just because of a patch. The devs did the testing, they ironed out the experimental bugs, and by the time it went stable, it was good to go. Now let's talk about the community reaction, because that's always an important piece of the story. When the patch notes first came out for 2.3, especially during the experimental phase, a lot of players were talking about how the changes showed that the devs are listening. On Reddit and other forums, people were pointing out that the switch from badges to survival gear felt like the team was addressing long-standing feedback. And when you read through the patch notes, you can see there's a sense of intentionality behind these changes. It's not just about throwing in new content for the sake of it. It's about making systems that feel more rewarding, more flexible, and more player-friendly. People were also happy to see those smaller touches, like updated icons and smoother AI, because it shows the devs are refining not just the big stuff, but also the details that make everyday gameplay smoother. That kind of attention to detail keeps the community invested, and it gives long-term players a reason to stick around. Of course, not everyone loves every single change right away. That's always the case with updates. Some players get attached to the old systems and feel a little thrown off when something familiar is replaced. But from what I've seen, the overall reception to 2.3 has been really positive. The survival gear system feels like an upgrade rather than a downgrade, and most players agree it's more fun to work with. The flexibility in biome progression is another one that's getting a lot of love. People have wanted that freedom for a while, and now it's here. And the fact that the devs are still adding little creative touches like honk events shows that they haven't lost their sense of fun, even as they polish the core mechanics. So, where does this leave us moving forward? Well, the stable release of 2.3 is a milestone because it closes the book on that experimental cycle. Everyone can now experience the new systems without worrying about bugs or instability, and that sets the stage for what's coming next. If you've been holding off on playing until things felt more stable, now is the time to jump back in. This is a great opportunity to start a new run, experiment with different biome orders, and see how the survival gear changes the way you approach challenges. Or, if you're already in the middle of a save, you can just keep going and see how the update slots into your existing progress. Either way, you're going to notice the difference, and it's going to feel fresh. What's really exciting to me is how this shows the developers are continuing to support the game with meaningful updates even this far into its life. 7 Days to Die has been around for years, and not every game this old keeps getting major updates. But here we are in 2025 with version 2.3 rolling out and shaking up some of the game's fundamental systems. That's not something to take for granted. It shows a commitment to the player base and a desire to keep evolving the game rather than just letting it stagnate. It's the kind of support that keeps a game alive, and honestly, it's one of the reasons why this community is still so active after all these years. Now, I want to take a little time to really paint a picture of how this survival gear system feels in practice, because it's one thing to read patch notes, but it's another to actually experience it in-game. Let's say you start exploring a biome and you overcome its specific challenges. Instead of just being rewarded with a badge that sits in your inventory like a trophy, you're now unlocking survival gear that actually matters. Maybe it's a piece of equipment that helps you deal with that, with that biome's hazards. Maybe it gives you an edge in combat. Either way, it's not just symbolic, it's functional.